In today's gospel story, the story of the man born blind, the disciples ask our Lord, "Master, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" And Jesus answers, somewhat enigmatically, "Neither he nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that the works of God might be made manifest in him." Now, here in this story, the problem of evil is raised, or more exactly, the mystery of evil, the mystery of innocent suffering. Why is the man born blind? It can't have been his own sin, because he was born that way. And Christ makes it quite clear that it wasn't either the sin of his parents. But why then is there evil in the world? Why is there innocent suffering? This problem is posed in a very sharp and direct way in Dostoevsky's great work, The Brothers Karamazov. The two brothers, Ivan and Alyosha, are talking to one another. And Ivan puts this challenge to Alyosha. He says, suppose that you had the power to create a world in which there would be light and joy. But in order to establish this world, it would be necessary to found it on the tears of one innocent child. Would you establish the world if that was the case? And Alyosha says, no, I wouldn't. And if we wouldn't do this, establish a world of light on the foundation of the tears of one child, why apparently does God allow evil, innocent suffering to exist in his world? This is the challenge that is issued to us in today's story. I've spoken of evil as a mystery rather than a problem. A problem is something that we can solve by thinking, like a crossword puzzle, that we can work out with our intellectual powers. But evil is not that kind of problem. Evil rather is a mystery. And it's a mystery that can only be solved through participation, through willingness to share in the suffering of others. That would be the only answer, if there is any answer, to the question, why evil? Let's try and think a little more deeply about this. Today's gospel makes it quite clear that evil is not the consequence of the personal sin of each one of us. There is such a thing as innocent suffering. The man is born blind. It's not his fault that he's blind. So that the works of God may be revealed. That sounds like an evasion of the problem. But this is the way I try to understand Christ's answer. It can be claimed that evil exists because God is a God of love. That may seem a very strange thing to say. Surely if God is a God of love, he doesn't want us to suffer. But love can only exist where there is freedom. The Russian theologian Evdokimov says God can do anything except compel us to love him. Love has to be free. That which we do under compulsion, because of coercion, is not an act of love. But in freedom, there lies the possibility of sin, suffering, and evil. God could have created a world in which there was nothing but robots who would automatically perform all his will. That would have been a world without sin and without suffering. But it would also have been a world without love. And God created the world so that there might be mutual love, so that we might love him and he might love us. That is the reason why God created the world. And so, that there might be a world of love, God created freedom. Another Russian theologian, Vladimir Lossky, says, in creating the world and giving to human beings freedom, God took a risk. But he who takes no risk does not love. Was the risk worthwhile? We may wonder about that. There is the problem of evil, suffering, innocence. But there is also within this fallen world in which we dwell great beauty, great wonder. What we are to recognize is that suffering can be used. Something can be made of it. It can be creative. It can be accepted. And through that acceptance, suffering can be transformed and transfigured into good. That is the way in which God's glory is made manifest through suffering. And then there is another point of great importance. We do not suffer alone. God suffers with us. On the cross, God takes upon himself all the sorrow of the world. And though he is risen in glory, yet he still has the wounds on his hands and feet. Pascal says, God will be in agony until the end of the world. So long as there is pain and suffering in this world, God will continue to participate in it. The glorified Christ will share in the suffering of the world. His ascension has not cut him off. He continues to suffer in us and with us. So yes, evil exists because freedom exists. But in creating a world with freedom, God took upon himself all the consequences of his act of creation. And so God suffers in us and with us. This is very clearly underlined in the Gospel of St. John, in the story of the raising of Lazarus. You will remember when Christ comes to where Lazarus is buried. It is said, Jesus wept. God, as a God of love, is involved in suffering. St. John says, having loved his own that were in the world, he loved them to the uttermost. The cross is a mystery of suffering love. So, this is our answer to the problem of evil, insofar as we have an answer. God is a God of love. As a God of love, he gave us humans freedom. As a God of love, he suffers in and with us humans, above all on the cross. But the suffering of God continues as long as there is even one child suffering innocently, as long as there remains even one sinner to be redeemed. God will continue to suffer with us. God does not offer us a way round suffering, but he offers us a way through. He does not offer us escape, but companionship. God suffers with us. As it says in the Psalms, though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, there are you with us. Your rod and your staff comfort us. So, when we suffer, God suffers with us. The tears of Jesus shed at Lazarus' tomb extend throughout the whole history of the human race. Christ is involved. Our God is a suffering God. Now, that may not give us a logical answer to the mystery of evil, but I think it offers us a way through. And now, looking more closely at today's Gospel, let us notice how people change, the differing reactions to the miracle of the restoration of the man's sight. His parents are questioned by the Jewish authorities, and all that they answer is, he is of age, ask him. So their reaction to the miracle is to have nothing to do with the matter. Let's keep out of this, they say. Then we see in the story how the Jewish authorities change gradually for the worse. We are told early on in the Gospel, some were inclined to accept the healing of the blind man as a miracle. But then their attitude hardens, and they say of the man who's been healed, this man is a sinner. So we have in the Gospels indifference on the part of the parents and deterioration on the part of the Jewish authorities. But then we look at the man born blind who has been healed, and there we can see a progressive advance, where the Jewish authorities take a downward path, he takes an upward path. Initially, when he's questioned, he professes ignorance. I don't know, he says. I've been healed, yes, but I don't know how it happened or who it was who healed me. When he's pressed for a fuller answer, he says of Christ, he is a prophet. But then later in the gospel story today, he makes a firmer affirmation. The more he's challenged, the more he recognizes that it's a miracle that has happened to him. And so he says later to the Jewish authorities, he is from God. And then Jesus seeks him out. That's significant. It's not that the man rediscovers Jesus by himself, but Jesus seeks him and questions him. And then the man openly says, Lord, I believe. He openly accepts that Jesus is truly the Son of God, and he worships him. So there we see how the man gradually grows in his understanding of the miracle and in his response. Thus we ask ourselves, where do I stand in all this? Am I merely indifferent and anxious not to be involved, like the man's parents? Am I deteriorating like the Jews? Did I once have real faith, zeal, and joy in the risen Christ? And am I now growing lazy and complacent and even embittered? Or am I, through God's mercy, advancing like the blind man, from doubt to faith, from darkness to light, from hesitation to commitment? And let us have a sense of urgency. The Lord is near. The night will soon come when no one can work. We must answer now to the risen Christ, Lord, I believe. We must now worship him.